Hi there, everybody. My name is Kate, and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. So I want to talk to you today about some stuff that's going on. This is time relevant in terms of Earth time. However, the message of truth is relevant year-round, anytime, because truth is truth. Currently in the United States, where I live, it's December something. I don't know, around the 15th or something like that. 16th, hell if I know. It's the middle of December. And we're just days away from things really getting going with our presidential stuff and the politicking of the world and what's happening on the world stage. And as a spiritualist, I don't miss those facts. I don't spend a lot of time, pondering them, ruminating about them, and damn sure not worrying about them. However, I do observe them because there's work to be done within those structures. For me personally, sometimes. Mostly I just don't get involved in that. I know we have spiritual workers who do. And like I said, I do not unless I'm guided to, and I have been guided to recently to be observing all the fuckery, quite frankly, that's happening on the world stage. And what it says to me is that the systems of control, the systems of the powers that were, definitely are really upset, quite upset, and powering down in their ignorance and their sleepiness and all their whatever, their darkness, because the system of control at its very top level, whoever's causing it, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Pick a story and, call it that. But the systems of control, New Earth is not supporting that. It's not supporting that low vibing idea of glommed up, bound up karmic energy that's going to keep floating around in this really just dirty, nasty experience for people on the planet, no matter what country they live in. New Earth is a completely new frequency. It's the 5D, and it's the age of Aquarius, where there's collaboration and personal sovereignty. Spiritual sovereignty is where we get our personal sovereignty. We have to be sovereign on every level, and everywhere that we are getting hung up in our Earth story, not claiming that sovereignty back for us, we will lose that battle, so to speak. And we have a lot of folks that are bound up deep and very deeply asleep and not aware of really the systems that they're in, and not really wanting to question it a whole lot, because it seems like, well, the tolerance for abuse and the tolerance for bullshit and the tolerance for pain has just grown so much, and we have been shocked and devalued and dehumanized and demoralized and just absolutely deconstructed on so many levels, that we've grown a tolerance for the levels of just absurd in our governments and our families and our schools and our systems and our banking, our finance, our commerce. It doesn't matter, our jobs, that all of the systems, the greatest system of control at the very top of the apex predator triangle, every single one of them, every single one of them, there's not going to be just one system that breaks down and changes on the planet. The changes have to be universal and global for the entire planet, because that's like trying to say that the sun only shines on one part of the planet. The entire system is upgrading, period, whether people like it or not. It's kind of a jerk-ass move, but okay. Unawake, obtuse, just making it happen. And I'm here, in the way, but I'm here. Okay. Made to lose my sense of what I was talking about. See how easy it is to get distracted and stupefied by the stupid, the obtuse. Everywhere that we're not gaining our sovereignty, let me just pick it up. Anywhere that we're getting lost in a system, anywhere that we're believing, that this part doesn't matter to me, the sun is shining everywhere on this planet. The global upgrade is a global upgrade. It's a global upgrade. Earth herself is going through her own evolutionary process, and she's not doing codependent children anymore. Look around. And she's not doing a system of control. She's not interested in being a prison planet. She's not interested in being micromanaged by whatever, weird shit is trying to do that. Pick a story, and that's the one. It doesn't matter, because she herself has her own vital life force energy, and she's not punishing the children of Earth in what's happening. However, she's expressing, the change, the growth pains that are happening. She's expressing them for us, and we are expressing them in the way that we're doing our lives as communities across the globe. Look around and see the bigger picture and see the theme. The theme currently is absolute destruction, and lot of people angry and off the charts. I mean, bizarre stuff. I'm turning on the TV and looking at world leaders and thinking, what is this? What did this person say? What are they saying? And when I'm done being disgusted, amused, whatever it is at that particular moment with the absurdity of it and the violence and the major, stuff that's happening, it reminds me that, the global picture of destruction is how divinity, is going to rise up out of this. No one out in outer space somewhere caused this. It was all human stuff that's been highly influenced by powers and systems of control. I'm not saying that isn't true. However, it is for humans to figure out how to no longer be imprisoned by something outside of themselves, to no longer be imprisoned by a president, a family member, a job, money, sex, drugs, whatever their locked and loaded thing is that they're just not giving it up. This is an opportunity for us to see where that stuff is, because it invariably will be ripped away from us no matter what it is, until we have been brought to our knees as a society, as a family, as a community, as an individual on every level, because the sun doesn't just shine on one part of the planet. You can hide in a basement somewhere, a bunker somewhere, however the sun's still shining, and it makes it into the darkest spaces, because that's what time it is on Earth. She's in her own evolutionary process, and she's awakening as well to newer understandings of herself. And it's time for humans to understand that we have a subservience to other things besides just our greed and our face and what we think we need to put in it, around it, or work for it. We have other things that we are surrendering to, and what we choose to surrender to, we're not being subservient to. And that which we choose to surrender to are the things that are here to work for the betterment of the entire planet and all of her inhabitants. All of Earth's citizens deserve to understand and know their own original source energy. However, if people aren't even asking, looking, or caring, or believing, or they're deeply troubled in what they're doing, they're not going to ever reach that spot. And there's just some folks that they're not here necessarily. Sorry about that, dude. I didn't know what you were doing. That they're not here necessarily to be learning how to wake up. They're here for their dark agenda, and they're trapped, and they maybe have a contract. I don't know. I just know that there's a great separation that's happening between those who choose to be in one timeline and those who choose not to be. And at the precipice of that, in all of those challenging moments, those crossroads moments of, do I decide to, jump into my fear and my, oh my God, or do I really buck up and stand here and face this? It's critical that unless we just really want to keep being slapped to the ground harder and harder and harder, I like to yield early because I got my ass kicked a whole lot. And at this point in my life, I like to yield early to what is it that I need to know and understand about this, because it helps the global understanding. It helps those that are just sleepy and, bullish and full of shit and stuff. It helps those people get there. They're annoying, they're, agitating, they're aggravating, they're starting war, they're stealing, they're, just absolutely violating people in multiple ways that are disgusting. However, they're still acting out of things that are driving them to do that they deserve to go back home. They deserve to go back to love frequency, which is what it's all about to begin with. And whatever their missteps were that got them where they are, and their ignorance and all of that, that's all fine and dandy. However, that's not work I can do for them. And if they're not willing to look at it, there's not anything I can do for them. And so the wheat and chaff separation that you see happening, it's better to just yield early and realize that that's somebody that's not my work, that we collaborate in areas where people are going to empower one another to pick up all the disaster. We don't have time for people to be making more disasters. There's plenty of, cleanup on aisle everywhere. And there's no more time to get caught up in the, oh no, blah, 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 or getting hysterical about impending whatever. There's always impending doom. That's the system that we live in, is impending doom. And as it hardens down and, buckles down and keeps on smashing down on the human collective and the human consciousness to test its resolve 12 of, how independent and sovereign would you like to be? It's not likely to get any easier. It's likely to keep testing us. And the more that, people try to run away from it and pretend like, la, 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 this isn't really what's happening, that's not what's going on, and, blame it on a cabal and that somebody is going to be, the savior of it. There is no savior. There's only the savior of us. It's us as a collective consciousness to individually gain our sovereignty, and that changed the collective consciousness of Earth and her frequency and the human collective frequency. However, it's not gained by somebody coming back to save us all. If that was the story, then it would have already been happening, and it's not. And so I'm going to leave it at there, because there's quite a lot more that could be said in that. It's just simply that now's not the time to just completely lose faith and, look at what's happening and jump into the hysteria and all of the bullshit. That's exactly what the power structures and the darker energies and entities would like to see happen. That's what's enjoyable. There are people that are being puppeted, NPC types, soulless, whatever you want to call them, people that are deeply, 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 deeply unconscious, as Eckhart Tolle says. There are people that are deeply unconscious, and they are acting out of that stuff, that they are being puppeteered by things that are well beyond anybody's human face. These are things that are quite complex, and a lot of people don't even believe in them. However, I know them to be true. I understand this, and there's not any way to answer that with anything but sheer truth and honesty and love, looking very different than most people are willing to call it. We want to love, light, and joy some stuff, and sometimes that's not exactly the way that the love needs to be put across the table. Sometimes the love across the table needs to be to cut people off, cut situations down, look at impending doom and say, no, I rebuke you, and I absolutely refuse to join you. And it's not to say that you'll necessarily chase a hurricane away, or a tornado, or war, or whatever. It isn't to say that you will necessarily chase the 3D reality away. It's that it continues to undermine the brainwashing and the mind control and the programming of that which is working very hard to double down and scare the shit right out of humans and get their consciousness to keep joining in the facade and the matrix. And so every time we denounce it and rebuke it and say, no, I'm not joining the hysteria of that. As a matter of fact, I'm joining in. I'm here and exhibiting no fear to the extent that we can, and mean that shit. Don't just say it, but mean that, and stop glomming up with people that seem like they're going to be saviors, because they're not. We have a lot of spiritual warriors that don't wear, political suits. They don't wear soldier suits out here. They don't wear, they wear ordinary clothes, and we're better off to find people like that that can teach us how to deal with what's happening inside of us, rather than looking to political leaders, pastors, family, whomever it is that might be talking junk, basically. And that's at your house to figure out, not mine. However, I can tell you that there's a lot of people in the sublime that are doing more righteous work to undermine these systems of control than there are out here telling you that that's what they're doing. If they're telling me that that's what they're doing, I automatically am on a default setting that proves to me that you're really not just upside down full of shit and part of the matrix. If you have to tell me that you're here to save me, you're not here to save me, bro. You're here to help me get, very involved with believing that I need to follow you and hand you my entire soul while I do, and I'm not about it. Thank you anyway. So, anyway, do with that information what you will. I hope that you enjoy your day. 185 again on the gas. That's amazing. I wish I didn't need to had a need for it to fill up my tank. But anyway, I hope that you enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in, and remember to get within your skin, because within your skin you're divine. It's absolutely fine. It's so strong. That is where your sovereignty is, and that's where your soldier, your warrior is. That's where the peace warrior, the war warrior, whatever it is inside of you that is necessary. And I'm not talking about laying hands on people. It's mostly a mind thing. However, that's where that is, and that's what can guide you through all of these hairy, jacked up situations where systems everywhere are trying to scare you. They're trying to get you to co-opt, the story with them. As long as, we keep joining the bullshit stories and the narratives, then we have, our minds under control, and we're easy through our fear to be manipulated. And I encourage you to say, yeah, no, not so much. Thanks anyway. And, dismiss it, spit on it, and send it on its way. rebuke it. Thank you. So anyway, take care of yourself and enjoy your day. I'll see you again next time, friends. Mwah. Bye.